Hillary Clinton is slamming Donald Trump for campaigning with Nigel Farage, a key leader in the campaign to get Britain out of the EU. Clinton warns that there's danger of Trump using Farage to help his message of redeclaring American independence. Take a listen to her here.
This is part of a broader story, the rising tide of hardline right-wing nationalism around the world.
All right, Kieran Skinner of the Hoover Institute joins me now. Kieran, welcome to the show. Good to have you here. I think that you have seen a bit of this around the world right now, but is this perhaps natural given what the world is going through right now?
Actually, I think Secretary Clinton is wrong in the statement that you just had us listen to, because the issue is not the rise of right-wing nationalism around the world. In the context of the U.S. presidential race, the issue that Donald Trump has brought forth that no other presidential candidate in the 21st century has been willing to talk about in any substantial and consistent way is whether the United States is prepared to maintain its role as a superpower in the world. So when he talks about America first, it sounds like nationalism, but what he's talking about has to do with the fundamentals of our economy, of immigration laws, of enforcing the rule of law, of burden sharing with our allies. If all of that sounds like right-wing nationalism, then I'm not exactly sure what's going on. Because what he's talking about is so fundamental to our survival as a superpower, as a great power, as a nation that helps enforce international norms, that makes international institutions work, that I think it's easier for Secretary Clinton and some of Trump's detractors
I
to
see what you're
say.
saying. No,
that
she's trying to dismiss it as nationalism. And perhaps you and I are talking past each other here, because I do think this is happening around the world right now. I think you're seeing it in France. I think you're seeing it in the UK. And I think it is absolutely positively logical, because these countries are struggling economically. These countries are struggling with their security. And we're facing the exact same thing back at home, although perhaps on a larger scale. As you point out, we have been the hegemonic power for decades around the world, and suddenly we have given that position up over the last 8 years thanks to President Obama and his ideas about where America should be. And look at the chaos that has ensued. In other words, we already took that role on. I don't know how, Karen, you abandon it. You abandon it for that length of time and expect things to be okay. Is it important for us and, frankly, the rest of the world for us to reestablish ourselves?
Absolutely. And where I do agree with you, and I think that you have it quite right, is that much of the rest of the world is looking at us for leadership. And I think because we haven't played that role for such a long time, there is a void in the international system. And you do have a kind of resurgent nationalism as countries attempt to figure out how to survive in the global war on terror. And it is Donald Trump who's been talking about the fact that we are, in fact, in a long global war and struggle against radical Islam. Much of what we see in Europe right now is an attempt to readjust to the fact that we're in a conflict that many leaders, even in Europe, throughout the West, have not wanted to acknowledge is in fact going on, and it's getting more and more kinetic. So I do think if the United States, in the context of the presidential race, does not address the role the United States must play in the West and the world more broadly, we are doing a disservice to the American voter, and we cannot play the natural role that we would play to preserve and to enhance Western civilization.
Right,
that, in fact, is what is at issue right now.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, this, you know, it's sad to think about, but we may be heading towards another World War II type of scenario where we need to lead that coalition for the sake of the free world. Karen, thank you so much. It's good to have you here.